Perhaps no one can truly grasp the depth and power of love until they shared life with a dog. I believe this wholeheartedly. So let me share with you some heartwarming stories of dogs whose actions will uplift your soul. Let's start with the story of two dogs who did something amazing when their owner needed help. Every morning we plan our day, but we never really know what will happen. In Chimbote, Peru, a man who uses a wheelchair woke up and set out to walk his dogs, just like he did almost every day without any issues. But this morning was different. While walking his dogs, the man suddenly fell, hitting his head on the ground and losing consciousness. With no one else around, bystanders rushed over and called for paramedics to help him. When the paramedics arrived, they were expecting to see another person with the man, but what they saw instead was surprising. From a distance, they saw only the dogs next to him, and as they got closer, their jaws dropped at what these loyal pups were doing. The canines were lying so close to the man as if they were trying to keep him safe. Dogs often lick their wounds to hasten recovery, and they were doing the same for the man in a desperate but loving attempt to treat him. When the paramedics finally got closer, they realized that the man's condition was critical. They lifted him onto a stretcher and started rushing him toward the ambulance. Just then, something surprising happened again. The man's dog started running toward the ambulance, trying to push the stretcher. This move made the health workers emotional, but allowing dogs in was against their rules. So at first, they tried to chase the dogs away, but their attempts were futile. It was clear that the dogs were ready to move mountains just to be near their injured owner. So the paramedics did something loving too. They allowed the dogs to come with them. While in the van, the dogs continued to care for their owner. After a few minutes, the man regained consciousness. The first thing he searched for upon opening his eyes was his pups. When they saw him, he could tell that they were scared out of their minds, so he touched them, assuring them that all would be well. Upon arriving at the hospital, the loyal canines were allowed to enter as guardians, and they waited outside the room while the doctors attended to their owner. After a few hours, the man improved and gradually regained his strength, but the dogs still refused to leave his side. However, since they were exhausted, they finally took some time to relax, resting their heads beside their owner's feet. Everyone in the hospital who witnessed how these dogs cared for their owner was so impressed that they acknowledged the canines as superheroes and true guardians. Indeed, a dog is a man's best friend. Here's another heart-melting story that demonstrates the beautiful bond dogs share with humans. It all started when a woman from Bukata Island, Istanbul, Turkey, fell sick at home. Her family members quickly contacted the emergency unit. When the health workers arrived, they started administering first aid, but the woman's condition didn't improve, so the medics took her to the hospital for proper care. While they were attending to the woman, neither of the paramedics noticed her dog in the room. The pup knew that something was wrong with her owner and had been very restless the whole time. However, she was about to do something courageous that would finally draw everyone's attention. It all began when the woman was placed on a stretcher. As they were carrying her out of the house and toward the ambulance, the canine jumped out of the house too. Perhaps the dog's action would have gone unnoticed, but not only did she run out, she also started barking and fighting her way into the ambulance. It was such a touching yet sweet display of love and fear. Despite how moved the paramedics were, they couldn't let the puppy come with them because it was against the rules. While everyone expected the dog to turn back, what happened next was amazing. Love makes us do almost anything, and the dog's motivation was nothing short of real emotion and care for her owner. As the ambulance drove off, the determined pup threw caution to the wind and started running after the van. She wanted to make sure that she was there for her owner during her vulnerable moment. Unrelenting, the dog continued to chase the ambulance at close range until she suddenly arrived at the hospital too. Sadly, upon reaching the health center, the pup was also denied entry, but she had already come too far to turn back. So she waited outside for the woman. After some time, the woman was discharged, and she was finally reunited with her best friend. No doubt, dogs are sweet creatures. What this dog did in the next story will make you emotional. A few years ago, Cho, 56, was diagnosed with hypertension and heart disease. He lived in fear that anything could happen to him any day, but he was never alone in his struggles. Mao Mao, his dog, understood his fears and pains. Soon you will see how far this faithful dog will go for Xiao. Eventually, Xiao's condition got so bad that one day the doctor told him he would have to sleep with a ventilator. When it was time for Xiao to use the nebulizer for the first time, something heartwarming happened. Mao Mao knew Xiao was sick, but she had never seen him use a nebulizer before, so everything seemed strange to her. As Xiao placed the ventilator over his nose, Mao Mao rushed to his side. With fear and worry deeply engraved in her eyes, she put her head on his chest. After that, she continued to stare at him as if to say, "All is well, I am here now." Xiao understood that his dog was worried, so he tried to reassure her that everything was fine and that she could go. But Mao Mao refused, and it's been that way every night. Each time Xiao puts on his breathing apparatus, Mao Mao rushes to his side and places her head on his chest, never getting up from the bed until Xiao wakes up. She took it upon herself to protect Xiao while he slept. Quite an adorable dog, right? But Mao Mao isn't the only sweet dog. Here's how another dog captured everyone's heart. One day in July 2018, a woman living in Heilongjiang, China, was walking her golden retriever when she suddenly collapsed. After the woman fell, the dog went into a panic. Immediately, he tapped the woman repeatedly, but she still wouldn't move. The pup lay by her side and refused to move an inch. Soon, passersby quickly alerted emergency services, and they arrived in minutes. Upon getting to the scene, at first, the paramedics were scared of the dog because of its large size, so they didn't approach the woman. However, when they noticed that the dog wasn't aggressive and was only protecting her owner, they started tending to the woman immediately. Once they lifted her onto the stretcher, the pup's mood changed. Everyone could tell that she was happy that help had come. Initially, the paramedics wouldn't allow the dog to enter the ambulance, but when they saw that she was persistent, they had to break their rules and let the doting canine in. Just when the paramedics thought they had seen it all, the next thing the dog did took them by surprise. Upon arriving at the hospital, the golden retriever made a sweet attempt at pushing the stretcher as they lowered the woman down from the ambulance. Because of the hospital's rules, the dog wasn't allowed inside, so she waited outside the treatment room while the doctors attended to her owner. After a few hours, the woman regained consciousness, and something interesting happened. The first person she requested was her dog. When she heard her name, the dog came running like a true guardian, excited that her owner had recuperated. It must have been a shocking and stressful moment for the duo, so after seeing each other again, they let all their emotions out and hugged each other. If you think you've seen it all, this next story will truly amaze you. Dogs are loyal and will protect those they love. One dog, Bangkok, went above and beyond for her owner, Semir, after she was taken to a hospital in northern Turkey. Semir suddenly became ill, and when an ambulance came to take her, Bangkok couldn't ride along. When they reached the hospital and Bangkok wasn't allowed inside, she did something remarkable. She sat outside the hospital entrance, waiting for her owner to return. Unfortunately, Semir wasn't discharged that day, but Bangkok didn't give up. Every day she showed up at the hospital at 9 a.m. and stayed until nightfall. Soon, Bangkok became a familiar sight around the hospital, loved by everyone. A few days later, Semir's daughter, Ayla, took Bangkok home. Everyone thought they wouldn't see the loyal dog again, but they were stunned when she returned the next day, finding her way back to the hospital on her own. This devotion made everyone love her even more. A few days later, Semir was finally discharged, and when she saw Bangkok again, Bangkok was thrilled, wagging her tail non-stop. They say if you want someone to love you forever, get a dog, feed it, and keep it close. Has your dog ever stayed by your side when you were sick? What did they do?